What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today we're going to be talking about Infinity Ward promising to fix Modern Warfare 2, some important changes coming, and even more. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, because we're very close to 100,000 subscribers here on the main channel. Also drop a like and turn notifications on to stay up to date with everything going on in Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, Warzone Mobile, and any other future Call of Duty as well. Now, a couple of days ago, after the beta ended for MW2 multiplayer, it was confirmed that it was the biggest Call of Duty beta of all time, with the most hours played, most players playing the beta itself, and the most matches ever played in a beta that Call of Duty's ever done. And I'm glad they kind of brought betas back ever since, Black Ops 3. Happy to see those every single year, of course. Even if we don't get some type of exclusive alpha only on PlayStation, it's good to see everybody coming together for at least weekend 2 of the beta when crossplay is enabled. But with that being said, they also sent out your beta stats to your Activision email. Check that out just to see kind of where you stand here in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. The only problem with the stats that I got is that it didn't account for my time during weekend 2 because I was on PC for that one. The stats that I was sent only account for PlayStation weekend 1. I didn't play the PlayStation beta too much considering I was really busy over at COD Next, getting back home. I went out of town again that weekend for some other important matters, so I didn't get a chance to play weekend 1 all that much, but I religiously grinded weekend 2, and unfortunately the beta stats just don't account for that. But maybe in future betas for other Call of Duties coming out, they'll end up accounting for both weekends no matter what the cross progression might have looked like for you. But yeah, don't be confused with some of the stats if it only accounts for one of your platforms, but let me know what your stats were down below in the comments. But before we continue with some important changes coming to the game, let's go ahead and thank the sponsor of today's video. Now, tonight's video is sponsored by Ragnarok Online. Ragnarok Online is a free-to-play online role-playing experience created by Gravity. The game has spawned an animated series, Ragnarok the Animation, and a sequel game, Ragnarok Online 2, Legend of the Second. The first game itself released in South Korea on August 31st, 2002, but it's back and better than ever. The major type of server-supported gameplay are player versus environment, guild versus guild, player versus player. Also supported by the game server are group versus group, arena combat, player versus monster, player versus all, and various other specific scenarios at designated instance locations in the game world. Non-player character run challenges and contests are also available with prizes, awards, and or in a specific Hall of Fame listing. Now, the game features a guild. You can become the greatest guild, join one, or create your own and claim an area just for you and your guild members. There's also PvP. With Ragnarok's online unique PvP system, monsters are no longer your only enemies. Now it's time for player versus player. There's a card system. You can become stronger using cards, create your own item using different combinations of cards themselves. There's card list, and even an upgrade system with an uncontrollable urge to become stronger. Use the upgrading system to make your weapons and armor even better. There's also 10 different attributes, which you can really get used to and figure out the best one for absolute victory. There's a pet system where you can make a monster your pet. Now, there's also the War of Imperium. So this is a war between different guilds to claim the castle to be your headquarters for the guild itself. Now, if you're ready to download Ragnarok Online, use the special link in this video's description or the pinned comment. And thank you to Ragnarok Online for sponsoring tonight's video. Now, back to the video. A couple of days ago, Infinity Ward also put out a nice blog post talking more about the ending of the beta and what to look forward to with the full launch of the game on October 28th. As they went ahead and said, firstly, thank you to everyone who played the MW2 beta the last 2 weeks. We have loved seeing all of you playing our game and creating amazing moments. If you haven't already, please share them with us on social media, and we might reshare some of our favorites. As we head into launch, we are going to be making some adjustments based on learnings from the beta itself. One of the most important parts of the beta is having you, the players, find new bugs and issues for us. We are grateful to the community for coming together to help us fine-tune this game, and we can't wait to show you even more. While we are working hard on a ton of content for you to play at launch and beyond, here are just a few things we want to highlight. While sentiment around footstep audio was more positive in beta weekend 2, we have seen your continued feedback on the volume of footsteps, and we will continue to balance enemy and friendly footstep audio ahead of launch. Enemy visibility is something that came up throughout both weekends of our beta. While many of you remarked on the improvement in weekend 2, we'll look to tweak increased enemy visibility to allow for better visual tracking matching of opponents that is not solely the traditional nameplate. And it's funny because this was something that they mentioned after weekend 1 but before weekend 2, and we were told that we were going to see some changes to visibility during weekend 2, but if not for the nameplate, then what else could they really improve that issue with? That's what I was confused about. We didn't end up getting any changes during weekend 2 either, so it looks like maybe they overestimated how complicated that issue really was, and instead of just going with the traditional nameplate above people's heads, like you've seen over the last couple years in COD multiplayer, they're thinking of something else that they're not going to have ready in time for a beta weekend, so they're saving that for launch instead. That's just my guesstimate at the moment. Now, they also said disbanding lobbies are another topic that they addressed during beta. We feel this is an important feature and are actively looking for potential solutions for launch. Now, they already put out a statement kind of addressing this, where they said there's a chance that lobbies will stay together more often when Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer does fully launch. The first time they've ever addressed lobbies disbanding in many, many years. I mean, it's something that has become this reoccurring theme with multiplayer ever since MW 2019, and I'm really not sure why. Like I talked about in many previous videos, lobbies sticking together is what built some really long-term friendships over the years, so not seeing that again clearly is tied to some type of SBMM algorithm update where disbanding lobbies allows for the algorithm to properly place you in an appropriate match according to the algorithm game after game. But the fact they said there's a chance that lobbies will stick together more often come the full launch of multiplayer, that tells me that maybe that slim chance lobbies stay together will maybe only apply to specific modes such as search and destroy, but not for modes like TDM. And the fact they also said chance also tells me that maybe the chance lobbies stick together will be a little rare, hopefully more common than not, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how it's going to work when the game comes out, but I'm glad they at least addressed that regardless. In terms of weapons, we are very happy with the results of the weapon tuning changes we made for weekend 2 of the beta. We have more changes to come given weapon performance in the beta, and we're very excited for everyone to get hands-on with all of the weapons in Modern Warfare 2. So during the beta, we had limited access to a good amount of weapons. I would say some of the weapons that we got to use were great. We got to fully customize them, change attachments, but other weapons we had access to, we just weren't able to modify anything at all. So we don't really know how good some of these weapons really are. And we're also going to be looking at something similar to MW19, where the stats on these weapons are not as clear. It's not as clear as Cold War or Vanguard, which gave us specific numbers under the stats for a lot of our weapons. MW19 and MW2 are going to have that in common, where we don't have any numbers to kind of represent our stats for our weapons, for patches, buffs, nerfs. So that's where people like JGod, Exclusive Ace, and those content creators come in to really talk about a lot of the shadow patches and gun stats every single update. I know it's silly, but I guess Infinity Ward's reasoning behind making the stats and the weapon tuning so unclear is that they feel like casuals won't read the stats anyway, which is an interesting argument considering Cold War and Vanguard are both games that gave very clear weapon stats out to the entire community. Now, as we also discussed in a recent podcast, we can't really wrap our minds around either the gunsmith or the new weapon tree system just yet. We had limited access to both of those features, of course, in the beta, and I don't think anyone's gonna really truly understand either of those until we have full access to all weapons in the game. I mean, not only did we have limited access to customizing the weapons we use in the beta, but on top of that, we weren't able to see all the weapons they're going to be a part of the different weapon trees that are in the game's multiplayer. And I still think a lot of casuals out there are very confused with not only those features, but also the UI itself. So once we really can see what the system's all about, I think things will become a lot more clear with weapon customization. And we also don't know what the grind looks like to really unlock all attachments for one weapon tree. I'm very curious how that'll look like in terms of camo grinding when the game fully launches. They also said we're excited to see so much interest in our third-person playlist. We have heard feedback on the camera shoulder swapping, and we will continue to make refinements to the mode for launch. More to come. And I'm very excited about this mode. I mean, I fell in love with it instantly over at COD Next, and I think I'll be playing it quite a bit this year. And I'm excited to see if maybe Warzone 2 also gets an LTM that's in third person, or we can get a third person option for like raids, DMZ, Spec Ops. We'll love to see that. Hopefully it's a new staple for COD multiplayer going forward, because the gameplay was really refreshing. Gave us some huge COD mobile vibes, also has that third person swapping kind of camera gameplay. So let's see what happens with the future of this mode. Hopefully it does get some healthy updates. Ground War and Invasion also had a ton of love from players in beta. Thanks to our diligent fans, we have many bugs to work through in both of our battle map modes. We also have more improvements coming for AI navigation in Invasion. We are still processing beta feedback and data, and will continue to share more details on the road to launch. Look for further updates from Team Ricochet on what is being done to combat cheating in the coming weeks, especially considering you had a lot of cheaters in the beta, which is really sad to see. I think it is a smart move though when the new version of Ricochet isn't available during the beta, so it doesn't give cheaters an extra month or something to kind of figure out how to break through that before the game fully comes out. And I think think cheat providers have made it clear that they got to come out with some cheats already for MW2. They put some together thanks to the beta, but I think Ricochet is going to be stronger than ever day one. That'll be able to counter a lot of those new cheats that are being made from the MW2 beta build. So I think the launch build of the game is going to really counter the cheating problem as much as possible. Hopefully that also translates well over into Warzone 2 in November. Now, they ended the article by mentioning that campaign early access does begin October 20th, not that far away whatsoever. And as I retweeted, as you can see here on Twitter, we're all going through this phase right now, as we usually do after a new COD beta comes out. You play the beta, you fall in love with the new game, and you have a hard time playing older games in between the ending of the beta and the full launch of the new Call of Duty. We're all going through that right now, and luckily we're gonna have a pretty hectic fall, right? October 28th, Modern Warfare 2, campaign, multiplayer, Spec Ops. 3 weeks later, Warzone 2 DMZ, and then maybe even Rage right after that. There's a lot coming, so stay tuned and be patient. There's a lot going on with the COD franchise. But I think a big response to Infinity Ward's blog post here is that Infinity Ward has kind of been tone deaf with some of their responses to a lot of the big criticisms in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Because as of right now, as Charlie Intel pointed out, they're kind of 1 for 4 here. The feedback they got for MW19 multiplayer and that game's beta even is the same feedback they're getting now for MW2. But like I've always stressed, right, if Activision doesn't have data, or even Infinity Ward doesn't have data in front of them, showing them that the changes they made to the MP are affecting casuals, they're not going to do anything about it. And like I've said even on the podcast, look, call me a shill, I don't care. The minimap, that silence, those things don't bother me. The perk packages, yeah, I criticized a little bit in a very respectful way, because I'm like, you know what, I could see them really trying to be innovative with a feature that has been a staple of COD MP for years. I get it when you guys say you don't have to reinvent the wheel when the wheel is fine. I totally get where you guys are coming from, but look, I talked about these things before. They're not make or break features for me that will determine if I'm going to go ahead and play the MP, make videos about it. It doesn't bother me that much, but I get it. We're seeing a lot of people that are very loud on Twitter and Reddit, YouTube comments that are upset about some of these things, right? So I think Infinity Ward is down to make some changes, but something people really have to remember is just the different type of communication they have versus Treyarch, Sledgehammer, Raven, any other dev studio. I think my issue with MW19 was that whenever a patch would drop, they didn't really explain the patch all that well. The patch notes weren't very clear. We've had a lot of shadow patches that were added to that game that YouTubers had to kind of come together and determine what was changed, what was secretly updated, what was this, what was that. I'm not a fan of that, but I think we have to really look at some of our great creators in the community that at least have come together to make some of these patches clear. Without them, then there would be a lot of secret changes that people out there wouldn't even know about. So I hope we don't go that route again with MW2 and the entire life cycle, but we might, and be prepared for that just in case. They just have a different approach to Call of Duty than Treyarch does, and it's your preference as to whether or not you want to support either one of those approaches. But last and definitely not least, we got confirmation that a Mountain Dew promotion does begin October 17th. So if you go and find Mountain Dew with MW2 marketing on it, you could probably find some codes on those bottles or 12 packs to go ahead and get some XP bonuses in Modern Warfare 2. What it looks like right now is that any XP tokens or Battle Pass tier skips you guys have had for MW19, Cold War, Vanguard, those will not transfer over at all into MW2 or Warzone 2, just to make things clear. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on Infinity Ward promising to change up Modern Warfare 2 a little bit for the full launch of the game? What are your thoughts on their blog posts and the other things we discussed? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.